Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending and coming to our Preventing Phishing. We are partnering with the Office for Information Security, and my name is Coral Graves. I'm with the Office for Information Technology, and we are so excited to be partnering with ISO today just to get more information on any phishing scams that you might have seen or how to prevent any phishing scams that will come your way. Without further ado, we have a few ISO members with us that are ready to present. So we welcome them. We have Lucas first, and then we'll have Andy talk about some examples about some phishing scams. So without further ado, Lucas, do you mind sharing your screen?
There we go. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. My name is Lucas Filoon. I have been with the University of Texas for about 12 years now. I spent about 10 years working for the Engineering Computer Science Department, ECS, in the engineering department as a help desk technician. And I'm currently with the Information Security Officer. I do a lot of work with phishing, and I help run the monthly know before phishing exercises that some people have probably seen. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it. We're going to start with what is phishing? Basically, phishing is a type of social engineering. A scammer, or someone that we might call or refer to as a bad actor, will try to trick a person into giving them information. Sometimes a bad actor will try to get information like password to access systems directly, but sometimes they might also be trying to get personally identifiable information, otherwise known as PII. In some cases, the goal is to get a person to participate in a scam, maybe to steal money or to download malicious software onto their computer that might give the bad actors control. Bad actors might also use several social engineering techniques in an attempt to trick people into providing them with this information or access. We often see techniques such as forgery, misdirection, and a lot of different techniques used in ways to catch people off guard and kind of keep them guessing. So phishing, a scammer's sinister scheme. As we mentioned, phishing is an attempt at social engineering, typically used to steal information or gain access to systems. It's typical to see scams that include things to make a person feel rushed or anxious. Bad actors might also attempt to manipulate people's compassion. Current events can often trigger these types of phishing scams. Subjects like the war in Ukraine, or maybe even the death of Queen Elizabeth, might be used in an attempt to play on a person's sympathy or curiosity. Trying to offer easy money or even a great deal for services is also a common technique used to trick people. Our students see a lot of job scams based around job offers or internships that are really just deployed to either get them involved in money laundering or to steal their account or personal information. Everyone at the university, or anyone at the university, could potentially be a target. That includes staff, students, and even faculty. It's important to keep our eye out on suspicious emails and report when you receive an email to the Information Security Office if it doesn't feel quite right or anything like that. As we've been discussing, phishing typically starts with an email designed to lure a person into communicating with the bad actors. Sophisticated phishing attacks might even appear to be from a trusted email source, like someone inside the university. There might be links to outside resources where information may be requested from you, the recipient, and that may be to entering passwords or things like that. Perhaps there might be a field to enter a password or any other kind of account information. There may be documents attached which could contain malware designed to give control of your computer to a hacker or to install ransomware onto the system. Sometimes the sender or files might look legitimate, so it's always important to evaluate all of the clues before interacting with an email. It's also important to remember not to reply to a suspected phishing email directly. We might get an idea that to reply to a person trying to steal our information, letting them know that we're aware of their scheme. But consider that you might actually be validating your own contact information and maybe providing other clues that would help a bad actor send you a more targeted attempt. For example, we have contact information in our signatures often. We'll have phone numbers and different ways for people to contact us. So it's generally a good idea not to reply to a scammer saying, hey, I'm on to you and you didn't catch me this time. Remember that social engineering can often play several different types of emotions. I mentioned before curiosity and things like that. So it's best to just avoid any kind of interaction and forward suspicious emails as an attachment to the Information Security Office, and then we can have it, a look at it. So red flags. There are usually clues or red flags that can be found within a typical phishing email. These are some examples of some of the red flags that a person might find in an email. For example, the from or the sender line. It may even appear to be someone that's within your organization, but it might not be someone that you're aware of or that you know. It may be obvious, and the sender may be from outside of the university. It may be, but it may even look like it's from a trusted site, like from Amazon or something like that. Sometimes the senders or the people receiving the email, the recipients, may be suspicious. It may be that you're CC'd in with a large group of people that you wouldn't normally be CC'd in with, things like that. Most phishing emails or scams will contain some sort of hyperlink that's included into the email. A lot of times those hyperlinks will point to addresses that are either different from the link that's in the email, what's typed out, or sometimes it's obvious and it just points you out to a completely different website. A lot of times the content or the subject line will also, they'll have some information in it that won't quite seem right. Maybe it may be an email for information that you didn't request, or maybe the content will have a lot of bad grammar and spelling errors, or it could just seem odd. Sometimes there'll be compromising pictures or threats that will be in the content too, and that plays on that idea which I talked about before of urgency and to get people to feel off guard and flustered, to click those links and go ahead and join up with the bad actors to get there to do information. But so the next slide's here. To help promote awareness, the Information Security Office conducts a monthly phishing exercise. Most people have probably received at least one or two of these emails, and you may or may not have even clicked the links. We conduct a simulated phishing email once a month to help that includes some of the telltale examples and red flags that users might see if they receive an actual phishing email. Some of you might recognize this sample that I have up on the screen from an exercise that we did a few months ago. You'll notice that the subject is designed to provoke that sense of urgency, that there's an issue with a person's account. This can cause someone to want to act quickly to avoid an interruption in their ability to sign into services and do their work. The email does appear to come from someone in our organization, Susan Richards. If you were to do a search for Susan Richards, you'd see that that's not an actual person in our organization. And then there's also a link to update your password. Typically, password updates don't have links. They'll give you directions on where to go sign in. Sometimes there may be links that are included from things from the help desk, but typically we try not to include links just for this kind of reason, so that we can separate ourselves from the scammers. Forces people to go to the actual website on their own rather than click a link. In this particular example, people are even encouraged to reply to the email if they have any questions. And as I was talking about before, it's generally not a good idea to reply directly to an email because we might inadvertently give somebody some additional information. So I know I said don't reply, but if I were to click the reply button as an example, this would show us some of the additional information that we might see. You'll notice that the email address has changed and that the external link is now not actually a UT Dallas website or email address. It points outside. Sometimes the address may still even show as a UT Dallas origin. It may be spoofed out, but in this case, it wasn't. It's important to take a few minutes to take a look at all of the information. In this particular slide, I actually highlighted where the link goes to. So this, you can see the URL of the actual link to where it points to. You can clearly see that it goes outside of UT Dallas. It's not our NetID website. Now, I know that sometimes when you hover over a link, it will show a safe link instead of the direct URL. And safe links are intended to help protect us against phishing and malware as a service from Office 365. But it's still important to be aware of what you're clicking and be aware of where the URLs and the links go. So what happens if you were to click a link and maybe expose information or even download malware? First, remember that these attacks are designed to get people to make a mistake. Anyone can fall victim to social engineering, and it's important to start a report as soon as you can so the right people can be contacted for help. There are some important steps that can help investigators, and these steps listed here are designed to address both some of the personal and work account compromises. But really, the steps for reporting might be a little different if you're dealing with either home or school accounts, but it's really kind of the same steps for both. If you believe you have been the victim of a phishing scam, please make sure to reach out to the Information Security Department. We'd be happy to help. Take just a minute here. We'll kind of go over some of these steps directly. So the first step is to collect information. If you're involved in a phishing scam, keeping copies of emails as they come in. They can be forwarded as attachments so that we can take a look at the headers and get some information about where the emails and things came from. If you believe that you've been had your account compromised, it's very important to change passwords to accounts. And this counts for personal accounts too. If a lot of times people, even on their university equipment, will have they'll access personal accounts, Facebook, bank information, things like that. It's important to make sure that those account passwords are also updated as quickly as you can, just to make sure you don't lose any of your personal information as well as any UTD information. Confirming that you have multi-factor authentication or two-step verification turned on for every account you can. Now that step is more for personal accounts. The university uses a system called Duo, which a lot of people are probably familiar with in some context anyway. We've rolled it out quite a bit. It's attached to quite a few services now. So from the university, Duo should already be turned on for the services that you need, but certainly for your personal devices, whether it's Facebook or anything like that, if they offer multi-factor authentication, it's usually a good idea to turn it on. I did want to take a second too to talk about something that we refer to as Duo fatigue. Duo fatigue is another form of social engineering. It's a technique where scammers might already have access to your account information, so they might already have your password and account. When a resource that utilizes Duo is accessed, a request is sent, usually to a person's phone. And we have them hooked up to our phones, but it may be, however you have Duo set up to authenticate. If the request is denied, the bad actors will typically try again a few times in hopes that the user would click accept, either by accident or maybe just to make the alert stop. It's important to note that this attack usually happens after an account has been compromised, which means that the bad actors already have your password information. So it's important if you get these alerts, not only to not hit the accept button, but to go ahead and make sure that you change your account password and contact the Information Security Office as soon as you can. If the attack affects your schoolwork or accounts, you should notify your supervisor as soon as you can, as well as the Information Security Office. Any of that information that you've collected can be shared at that point, as well as any additional information that you think may have been compromised, credit card, bank accounts, anything like that. And then from there, you may also want to contact companies that may be connected to the to the breach to let them know that we've had that compromise too. Usually that'll happen through the information security supervisor's office too. And as always, whether it's personal or UTD, if you believe that there has been a crime, if you've lost money, if you've been a victim of identity theft, it's important to contact and report that to the appropriate law enforcement. Call the police. Again, the ISO can help with that depending on the nature of the breach and whether there's money stolen and things like that. We have some contacts too to be able to help with that. And then remembering that, you know, all the details that were collected could be very helpful to remediate any issues on that breach. So with that, that's about as much as I have right now. For my presentation. I'm going to pause this. I'm gonna pass the presentation over to Andy Cummings, who is going to talk a little bit about some of the various types of job scams and specifically things like that. So, and I'll be around in chat to answer questions, and we'll do a follow-up at the end too if there's any specific questions that had anybody, if anybody had any. And with that, thank you very much for paying attention. I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to Andy.
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody. Thank you very much for spending an hour with us. This is the kind of thing that we wish that we could present to many other people, to every student, faculty, and staff member. We just can't get to everybody. So we'd love to present this kind of stuff again and get more people forewarned, forearmed, you know, and help defend the university a little bit better. Let me open up my, excuse me, little presentation here. And if I can get this going. This is me. This is a little bit about my background. I assume everybody can hear me okay. And just an FYI, I've been told I have a bit of a weird accent. And part of that is because I grew up in Africa. I'm Scottish by birth, grew up for decades in various parts of Africa. I went to the Middle East and I'm now in Texas. So if my accent is all kinds of screwed up, that's kind of the reason why. So some of my background on the screen from the bottom upwards, former military officer, of course, with my accent, certainly not US military. I then got into executive protection. Some famous people, I won't name names. I then got into, in the early days of the internet, I got into an ISP as a tech support guy and ultimately went through and became their technical trainer for about 300 staff members. Then I got back into sort of kind of my old executive protection type of work. Working in rather high threat environments overseas under the auspices of the US Department of Defense. So I was what they technically call a military contractor. Where I come from, you know, a mercenary is not a very polite phrase. So we call ourselves contractors. And then when I came to the US, I started working for an antivirus company. Now, I've been exposed to malware, viruses, Trojans, all kinds of fun stuff in the late 90s when I was working for that internet service provider. That was my first insight into it. And it intrigued me because it was always bad guys trying to do bad things to good people. And that kind of irritated me a little bit. So when I came to the US, I wanted to continue fighting against, I was getting a bit older, of course. So I couldn't do the physical military type stuff. Getting a little bit long in the tooth for that, but I wanted to continue the war in the cyber sphere. So I was doing courses, network engineering types courses like CCNA and computer forensics and that sort of thing. And ultimately I ended up with UT Dallas 10 years ago. I've been here a little over 10 years. So not quite as long as Lucas, but I have been with the ISO, the Information Security Office, the full time since I joined. Right, here's our first scam. What we're going to go through today are probably 4 of the most common scams that I see at the university. I see this on a daily basis, believe me, guys. I see this every single day. Most of them, as Lucas mentioned, come in through email. So if there's one piece of advice that I would like you to take seriously, it's stop treating your email as if it's the main thoroughfare of Disneyland, okay? It's not safe and cool. Think of it more as, okay, you're going down one of the side roads in New York City. Every email you get is a contact with a person. That person could have benign motives or they could be trying to mug you or hurt you or steal stuff from you. Start looking at your email with a little bit more suspicion, rather than, you know, the gaily dancing down the thoroughfare again at Disney World. It's a big bad world out there. There are bad people who want to do very bad things. So every single email that comes in, look at it with a little bit of a suspicious eye. Okay, so onto this actual scam, and this one is very, very common right now. It's called a refund scam. And essentially, this is a screenshot of an email that one of our, well, in fact, not one, many of our staff members have had, where it claims to be that you have paid for a 1-year subscription to Geek Squad for their security services, $413. Okay, that's a fair amount of money. So you'll notice in red at the bottom line, it says, please contact our customer care, and there's a toll-free number. So again, as Lucas had intimated, a lot of these things are designed to go after your emotions. So most people would be outraged at the thought that they've been charged for something that they didn't ask for. So they will pick up the phone without thinking and then phone that number. And that is where the scam really kicks into high gear. Okay, and this is how it works. So step number one, they try and scare you into phoning them or anger you into phoning them. They're offering a refund, which you think, cool, I want my money back. Now, they will social engineer you into putting software on your machine that will allow these guys remote access. They're extremely convincing. They do this for a living. They're not idiots. They're very, very shrewd in conning people psychologically. So the old are particularly vulnerable to this kind of scam because they tend to be very trusting, especially when it comes to technology. Now, the bad guys will get you to log into your bank account under some pretext, usually so that you can, quote unquote, watch the refund being processed in real life. What they do is, using that remote access software, like TeamViewer or some of the others, is they put up a fake page and it looks like you're getting a refund, but the real action is happening behind that browser window that you're looking at. They've actually now got access into your bank account, and they will Zelly pay the funds to themselves. So just be careful of that. You will see from time to time in your personal email accounts as well as your UTD email accounts, you may see things like you have bought a fridge from Best Buy, or you have bought this antivirus program from McAfee or Symantec. I mean, I see all sorts of things every single day. So I hope that makes sense. So in brief, that's the refund scam. People claiming that you have bought something for a lot of money, enough to anger you into calling them. Don't fall for it, please. Second one, and this is probably my favorite, because I was a student at one time as well, and I know what it feels like to want a good paying job. Now, this is very recent. This one is going on right now from this company who are calling themselves P2P Logistics. And if you start analyzing and looking at the text of this email, you'll start to notice a couple of things that don't quite sound right. An attractive weekly salary, a remote job. They don't even know who you are if you think about it logically. What really gets to me, excuse me, is the first line that's all in caps. If you look at the right-hand side, where it says, kindly reply, excuse me, to this email with your alternate email in order to receive the job description. Now, number one, I'm like, who are these guys? Who's P2P Logistics? Number two, why are you not sending me the full job description as it is already anyway? Why are you being so hinky and evasive? And number three, why do you want my alternate email address? So already there are things going on with this that are suspect. What I haven't shown you is the sender's name, Rabian Neath, at the top. One should always, as Lucas had mentioned, see where this is actually coming from. So you want to click on that name at the top left, Rabian Neath, and make sure that you can see what email address it is. Okay. Here's another one. And here I have opened it up a little bit so you can see that it's from a Gmail address. And this one is extremely common. These guys claim to be Cisco. Dear student, we got your contact through your school database. That's line number one. We don't send this stuff out. Cisco Systems is running a student empowerment program, and you just need a few hours per week to do this. And once again, you'll notice, kindly email back with your personal email address. Now, the reason why they want your personal email address is they're very aware that there are guys like Lucas and me who are trying to sever all contact between the bad guys and you guys. We're constantly going through the email system. In fact, we've been doing this for, a year, a little over a year and a half. In fact, no, it's almost 2 years now, where the university attorney gave us permission that we're not looking in your inbox, don't get me wrong. We are just putting in, for example, the subject line, and it shows us everyone who received an email with that subject line or that email address and so forth. And we can then go in and we can delete that from everybody's mailboxes. So number one, we're not looking at your inbox, okay? We're just seeing everyone who got that, and we're just checking a mass list of checkboxes to wipe that email from everyone. So you're quite secure there. So always be careful. If it's a job offering from Gmail, it's like, well, okay, how professional can some dude on Gmail be? You know, somebody, especially if they say, you know, we're from our reputable company, Cisco Systems. You know, Cisco, huge computer networking company. Surely they wouldn't be emailing me from Gmail. So start looking out for things like that, things that don't make sense. Trust your instincts, just like as if you were walking down the street again in New York City for real. You know, trust your instincts. Take your, as we used to say in the military, take your holiday head off and put your suspicious working head on, your combat head, as we called it. So listen to your instincts. Usually there's a reason why they're screaming at you that, hey, something is hinky, something is wrong. So that's the Cisco job scam. And this third one is very, very typical, telling you how simple this is. It only takes a couple of hours a week. It's a lot of money, $550 weekly for a couple of hours work. Wow, how cool. Big red flag in here is the third line. I'm unable to meet up for an interview because I'm currently away and I'm helping disabled students in Australia. We call that the bunny factor. It's one of the things that make you feel sorry, empathetic for the person. Oh, he's helping the disabled students in Australia. Okay, basically it's BS. Okay, he's not going to come and see you because he's a scammer. So that's his excuse for not meeting. But at the same time, he's trying to make you feel some kind of empathy for him. Another big red flag is in the second paragraph. You will be paid in advance for all tasks. Come on, really? Who pays you in advance? And here we start getting into sort of a hint of what you're expected to do. Some of my personal letters and emails will be forwarded to your residence for you to pick up. So essentially what this is a money laundering scam and a stolen goods scam. Quite often these scammers have multiple scams going on simultaneously. You are just one of the gears in the cog. So these guys typically are doing something like using stolen credit cards to buy stuff from places like Amazon, for example. You are the person who receives the package. Let's say they have bought a laptop computer with a stolen credit card. You are the poor schmo who sits in the middle receiving this fraudulently obtained laptop, and you now have to send that to some address in Houston, which historically is where the stuff has gone. From Houston, it then goes overseas. This person also tries to make you work harder by saying that if I'm impressed with your services, you know, we can make this full time. In other words, they want you to work hard for them. And once again, you'll notice that they want your alternate email address and your mobile phone number. That's very, very common. So once again, if people like Lucas and me step in and interfere, they can bypass us and still get a hold of you, okay? And on the last line, Dr. Alan Zabo Ashley. They love talking to university students because we are so impressed by PhDs and titles. It's sort of in our training. If I were a bad guy and I were targeting military people, I would be calling myself, captain, general, colonel, whatever, some high rank. Again, these guys are very shrewd in what works psychologically to affect us. They are not fools at all. When they're targeting university students, a PhD title is super. So hopefully that makes sense. So start thinking about these kind of things. Start putting together a little bit of sort of a mental toolkit on what to look for, because I guarantee you will see this. As much as we have a pretty good set of mail admins, there is no perfect email system that will filter all of these things out. And to be quite frank, mail admins really don't want to put in search terms that may accidentally filter out a legitimate job offer, as you might understand. So they tend to let things like this through in the hopes that maybe they're legitimate. But ultimately, you are your own defense. Okay, so in brief, this is what the job scam is about. So it's not about offering you a job, and it's not about you collecting data and working on behalf of Cisco. It's because they've stolen either goods or huge amounts of money. There's a thing called BEC, Business Email Compromise, where they compromise a business, like, for example, the construction company that's doing work at UTD. UTD owes these guys, I don't know, millions in currency. In fact, 4 years ago, just under 4 years ago, UTD was almost scammed for $6 million through a business email compromise. It was the construction company. They got compromised. They sent us an email to our finance department saying, hey, we've changed our bank account. Please now send it to, ABC Bank of Nevada. And they almost got away with it. So that was step two. The money would then have been sitting in a bank account here in the US, and you would then be the smuggler, excuse me, or the money mule, as it's technically known, to transfer that money. So guess who the cops are going to blame for this? So basically, your job is to be a money launderer. Okay. So, in brief, usually you'll see a Gmail address, a Hotmail address, iCloud.com for the Apple guys, and so on. You don't normally see it from Cisco.com, utdallas.edu. That does happen, though. There is a concept called mail spoofing, which most of you have probably heard of. Okay, it's just faking an email address. So I can send you an email and it's from Bill Gates at Microsoft.com or whatever. It doesn't mean that I am Bill Gates, obviously. I'm a lot better looking, not as rich, but a lot better looking. So I've been told. So look out for the spelling and the grammar. If somebody claims to be Dr. So-and-so, you would expect that they would have excellent spelling and very, very good grammar. This is harder to do, of course, for anyone whose native language or first language is not English. English grammar can be incredibly, incredibly difficult for anyone who's not a native English speaker, but still do your best on that, because usually that is one of the best indicators that something is not right. Look for the job description. Is it very, very specific, or is it kind of vague? If it's vague, it's like, okay, what are you hiding, dude? And they always claim that it's good money, and quite often they want to pay you in advance. So be on the lookout for that kind of thing. A couple more things. We've gone over this before. There's no interview, and that person isn't going to meet you. As we've mentioned as well, they want to switch from your UTD email address to your personal email address, or even text messaging. They actually send you a check. Our guys these days are getting a check in a PDF form in their email, and they're constantly badgering you. Have you deposited the check? Quick, quick, quick. So be on the lookout for those kind of things. So there are some of the red flags. That's the previous email that I had before. Unable to meet up for an interview. I'm trying to help the disabled students. That's the sympathy ploy. You'll be paid in advance. Alternate email and your mobile number. So those are all examples of red flags in a live scam that you'll see. And here's a check or two that some of our students have actually received. $1,800. This particular student was told to keep $300 for themselves. The other $1,500 they had to buy. I think it was Ethereum, cryptocurrency, but keep $300 for themselves. And here's another one. That was from the previous year. I can't remember what this one was for. So these are all legit checks in the sense that they are drawn on bank accounts that do exist, that there is money in those accounts. The problem is it's stolen money. And we'll get into why it's a bad idea in a little while for you to not care about that, because we do have some very mercenary types, I guess. We're all hungry for money, right? And this is why. Okay, let's go through this a little bit. So I literally had a student say, well, it's $3, and I'm not the one who stole it, so why should I care? Okay, look, if the banks find out, and eventually they will, you will have your bank account frozen, and you will carry the debt for all the money that you transferred. We had a young lady, I think it was 4 years ago, she transferred a little over $15,000. They froze her bank account and they kept her on the hook for that $15,000. That's a debt that she's probably still working to pay off. Okay, it wasn't worth the $300 of free money that she made. Okay, so you will be on the hook for that. Obviously, it'll affect your credit score once you're busted, and your credit score is a huge component of finding a job, getting an apartment. All of those kind of things. We all want to be successful in life, and you've basically hammered yourself flat, given yourself a horrible disadvantage for years by getting involved in that, just by having a horrible credit score. Then the banks themselves have what they call the checks system, and basically you can forget about getting a credit card or getting a loan to buy a car or anything like that. You're basically blacklisted, and I believe that's 5 to 7 years. Okay, you don't want to be on that system. Obviously, felony charges, criminal charges could ensue, because if they can't get the bad guys, you're the convenient person. And as much as America is the land of the free and the home of the brave, we've all seen those TV shows where there's a very, very eager prosecutor wanting to make their name or just get another check mark on their belt. So while I would love to believe that, our legal system is fair and just and even, the fact is simply that stuff happens, and you don't want to be on the bad side of a prosecutor who doesn't care about you and they just want to get another notch in their belt, another successful conviction, because someday they want to run for mayor or congressman or something. Here's the interesting thing. I didn't realize until a few years after I was here in the US, if you are charged with some kind of criminal act and you need to get a lawyer, you don't get your money back simply because you were found guilty. In other words, okay, you're charged with a felony, and it will be at least usually $50,000 just to retain a criminal defense attorney. Okay, that's a lot of money. Now, on top of that would be all the time that this attorney or team of attorneys spend in defending you. So let's say magic happens and you escape prison. You're found not guilty. By this time, you've probably paid at least $80,000. They keep that. You don't get that back. Now, I know that some of you maybe come from wealthy families. Most of you don't. Most of us don't. Heck, that is a lot of money. So you wouldn't want your parents or whoever to put their house up for sale, put it on the market, etc. Basically, just because you wanted to score a quick $500. You could lose your student visa if you're a foreign student. UTD itself may kick you out if they suspected that you were involved in criminal activity. And the last one is probably the most scary, physical threats. Quite often these bad guys want your physical address. In one of the previous emails that I showed you, they actually wanted your mailing address to send you packages. They know where you live. In the case of one young lady 6 years ago, they actually, when she decided not to forward on these not to transfer the money, they started threatening her with some really, really gruesome threats that I won't repeat here. But it was made even scarier because they knew where she lived and she was aware that they knew. So that made the threats that much more real. Remember, guys, these are people who are dealing in a multi-million-dollar business from their perspective. Think of them like a drug dealer. Okay, they're not going to play games with you. These are serious people. You do not want to mess with them. And that's the biggest warning I can give you there. Okay, third type of scam. Get back in the lighter side of things. Foreign students are particularly vulnerable to this, but anyone can get them. Usually a phone call, but sometimes as a text message from people claiming to be some kind of person of authority, you know, the police, US immigration, customs and immigration, whatever they call themselves these days, the FBI or the tax man from the Internal Revenue Service. And they always claim that you've broken some weird law or something that, you know, you're just unaware of and you're about to be deported or arrested or whatever. And ultimately, they want you to pay a fine. And it's usually something like, oh, go to Walmart and pick up a gift card and, you know, text me the number on the back. Okay, that's not how the legal system works here in the US. Now, I spent a lot of time in Africa, and things can be very, very shaky. You know, you can pay bribes and things like that. I kind of get used to that being a way of life. Same thing with the Middle East. Same thing, parts of Europe as well, actually. So it was kind of weird to come to the US and realize that the whole world doesn't work the way that I was used to. It took me a little while to realize that. And I nearly got scammed twice while I was going through the whole immigration process because I was so sensitive to the subject of being thrown out of the country. So be careful, don't fall for that. Be aware of your rights, first and foremost. Even if you're a foreigner in this country, you have rights. It's up to you to investigate and know what those rights are. If you don't know what they are, how can you defend yourself? And also know the system, know how the system works, know how the police or the FBI would arrest you. They don't phone you up beforehand and say, hey, pal, we're coming to arrest you. No, they just, you know, pitch up at your doorstep and kick the door in and come and arrest you. Okay, or stop your vehicle. They don't give you a warning and say you've got to pay a fine. That's up to the court system to fine you if something like that were to happen. So please tell your friends, if you're a foreign student, particularly, having been a foreigner myself, I'm very, very big on trying to defend and protect the foreign students that we do have here. So please make your friends aware of this. You know, if you're from overseas, please just tell your friends that you heard this today and make them aware of this as well. So that's the fines from authority. And then the last one, you may or may not see this. This is usually designed to play to people's ego. They say, I'm looking for a math tutor for my son, and your name came up. So you reply to them and you say, okay, I'm not really a math tutor, but I'm pretty good with math. I can give it a go. What you're seeing on the screen here now is pretty much how the scam works. These are the instructions. These are actual instructions that one of our staff members received from the scammer. So basically they are overpaying. Let's say you agreed on $800. They overpay, say $1,500. And these are the instructions the bad guy wants you to follow. Once you've received the check, deposit it, wait until the check is cleared, and then you send the excess money. Remember that you wanted 800, they sent you 15. So the excess, the other 700, you send the money to my son's nanny. You would have to read the text here to figure out really what's going on. But essentially, you assume that you've got money in the bank. Ultimately, really what happens is that check bounces and all that money comes out of your account, all $1,500. And they try, again, psychologically, use little tricks like, I'm compensating you with an extra $50, blah, blah, blah. You know, anything to make you believe them. So that's the overpayment scam. It's just basically, they can do it for pretending to be wanting you to be a tutor, or it can be buying stuff that you've advertised for sale on social media. Facebook is full of this kind of thing, for example. You know, hey, that bike, you know, well, I know you wanted $1,000 for the bike, but I'll give you 1,500, you know. Always be, as soon as you see somebody's offering you more money than you have asked for, guaranteed it's going to be one of these things, the overpayment scam. So hopefully I've scared everybody enough today. And again, this is just the overview of how it works. Okay, basically it's a check bouncing scheme. And voila, that's the end of mine. So I will hand it back to the folks in OIT and see what we've got.
Hi, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you, Andy and Lucas, coming on and really letting us know more about different ways of phishing and scamming, and just having more knowledge on that. So if there are any questions, we will answer them in the chat. And if there aren't, we really appreciate all of you coming and just being a part of this today. Lucas or Andy, there is a question in the Q&A. I can go ahead and read it, or if you would like to answer that individually, you could.
See what either.
It's in the Q&A. I can go ahead and read it.
Oh, the Q&A. Sorry, I'm just going to chat. Go ahead and go read it, and then I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, if I get one of these, and I just did yesterday, who do I contact? I couldn't find an email address to forward it to.
So the email address is actually up on the screen right now, infosecurity@utdallas.edu or issupport@utdallas.edu. The best recourse is to actually forward the email that you get as an attachment. If you're using Outlook, there's actually a button up in the upper right-hand corner, I believe. And if you push that button, then it allows you to forward the whole email as an attachment. If we have the email as an attachment, then we can take a look at it. And we can evaluate the headers and things like that, and get some more information about what is actually in the email. That's usually the best way to do it. So forward the email as an attachment to infosecurity@utdallas.edu or issupport@utdallas.edu.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize that we do take action on these emails. 9 times out of 10, it'll actually be me looking at this thing and then going into the mail server and seeing who else got that email. So the mail headers are important, so I can see where the heck it actually really did come from. Hence, Lucas asking you to forward it as an attachment. If you just forward an email, it replaces the hidden code, so to speak, in the email with your code. It basically has tracing or root information, so I can see where the heck this thing came from. But if you just forward it, all of that is gone and replaces that routing info with yours. But I do want to emphasize that usually we act on this pretty quickly. I'm so motivated that I usually stay up fairly late, and even often on weekends, just looking for these bad guys' email to get rid of. I just detest them so much. They've caused so much damage to our people here that you've got a whole motivated team of. This is not just me, but a whole team of folks who love what we do. We don't like the bad guys, so we'll do whatever we can. Oh, and by the way, that's QR code. It's safe to take a photo of that or use it. I promise you, it is not booby trapped.
When you click the phishing button in Outlook, it goes to Microsoft. It also goes to a thing that we can check, but unfortunately, people tend to use that for every piece of spam that they've received. So it's very hard for us to check that. So Microsoft deals with most of those, and it does help, because Microsoft will often take actions on emails after the fact because somebody reported them. But for scams and things that are in people's mailboxes that we could remove, it is best if you report them to us separately. We are looking at ways to get that button replaced to be more effective and useful, but at this time, it's just Microsoft. It is better to email info security, but we also understand people have a limited amount of time. So if, pushing that button is better than doing nothing. But forwarding it to us is definitely helpful for us.
Okay, I think this was really successful. I am so glad that we all could come together and learn a bit more about phishing. I don't see any more questions in the chat or Q&A. And I think this is, we come to a conclusion. So thank you everyone for attending.